Hi, I'm Casey, but most of you know me around the web as Cartoon12 or Tooncow12 here on YouTube, and as my username suggests, I love cartoons. Even now as an adult, I still prefer animated shows and movies over live-action ones, and I also like listening to people's opinions about their favorite episodes, so I thought, why not make a few top 10 lists of my own? I'd be interested to hear if anyone agrees or disagrees with my choices, and maybe people can point out some things that I've never considered before. So for this top 10 list, I'm going to feature one of my favorite cartoon shows, Futurama. Created by Matt Groening, who's also famous for creating The Simpsons, the series follows the adventures of Philip J. Fry, who is cryogenically preserved for 1,000 years and is revived on December 31st of 2999. Fry finds work at the interplanetary delivery company Planet Express, working alongside the one-eyed mutant Leela and robot Bender, along with the mad scientist Professor Farnsworth, stuffy by-the-book accountant Hermes, sweethearted intern Amy, and annoying Dr. Zoidberg. This group of ragtag misfits must navigate the ups and downs that anyone goes through in a workplace sitcom, or as normal as life can get in the 31st century, that is. The Simpsons may be what put Matt Groening on the map, but honestly, Futurama is his real masterpiece. From the character arcs to how much care and attention went into the world building and jokes, virtually nothing in this future setting was ever neglected, to the point that most of the showrunners were actual scientists and mathematicians in real life, and injected real equations and science into the show to make certain plots work, even creating an entire fake alien language that's used mainly just to inject hidden background jokes you can decode if you take the time to look. And of course, there's the hundreds or maybe thousands of in-jokes and references to pop culture and anything and everything nerdy, and the biting commentary on science, religion, politics, and pretty much anything you can think of in modern-day society, and how all of that, both the good and the bad, would be magnified by 1,000 in the distant future. Needless to say, this series is more than deserving of all the dozens of awards it was nominated for and won, and each and every time the show was potentially ended for good, the writers consistently came up with a proper send-off for all the characters. From Fox to Comedy Central, and now in July of this year, the show gained another season on Hulu. So in honor of this series continuing to be cancelled yet find a way to come back again and again, we're going to take a quick look at some of my favorite stories. Bear in mind this is all just opinion, and of course comedy is subjective. Stuff that I think is hilarious may not be another person's cup of tea, and I don't profess these as the absolute best the show has to offer. These are just the episodes that I was the most glad to see whenever they came on TV. This series was so good at having stories that made you laugh your butt off one day and then make you cry your eyes out the next day, sometimes even in the same episode. Like, if I were to try and decide which episodes were objectively the best, this would be a very different list, and I'm really interested to hear what your thoughts are. But for now, good news everyone! These are my top 10 favorite episodes of Futurama. Number 10. Space Pilot 3000. Well, what better place to start with than, well, the actual start of the show. On December 31st of 1999 in New York City, pizza delivery man Philip J. Fry delivers a pizza to a cryogenics lab, only to discover that the order was actually a prank call. A dejected Fry sits in the deserted lab to eat the pizza while the New Year 2000 countdown occurs outside, but at the stroke of midnight, Fry's chair is knocked over and he falls into an open cryonic tube and is frozen. Cut to December 31st of 2999, and Fry awakens in the world of tomorrow, aka New York City. From there, Fry must now learn how to navigate this strange new future, and along the way runs into Leela, Bender, Professor Farnsworth, and all the other people who will slowly become his found family. And in the process, he'll find a place where he belongs in this new world he has to call home. I think a lot of writers can tell you that one of the hardest things to do when developing a series is writing the pilot episode, as there's so much you have to establish in such a short amount of time, and you have to make it interesting enough that the audience will be hooked and want to come back each week. I think this one deserves to be included as one of the top best beginnings to any animated show, as so much world building and character development is packed into just 22 minutes right from the get-go. In the DVD commentary, Matt Groening noted that beginning any television series is difficult, but he found particular difficulty starting one that took place in the future because of the amount of setup required. As a trade-off, they included a lot of Easter eggs in the episode that would pay off in later stories. From Fry geeking out over all the future tech to Leela's mysterious backstory to Bender just wanting a friend, so much is said in just a few scenes that you want to find out more about all of these characters. It just goes to show how much the showrunners cared about continuity and how much they planned ahead, as just within the first few minutes, if you look carefully, there's more than a few blink and you'll miss it moments that wind up being elaborated upon farther down the line, sometimes even seasons later. And the creators were also careful to create a setting that hit a nice middle ground between not becoming too utopian, but not being a total dystopia either. In short, as much as I adore Star Trek and want to see that future come to pass, if we're being more honest and realistic, this is probably closer to the future that'll actually happen, both in the ways of technology, politics, and entertainment. It's far from perfect, and many things are played for dark comedy, but there's a lot to like about it too. Bottom line, if you're on the fence of whether you want to give the show a shot or not, you won't have to slog through a lot of setup. From that first day of March of 1999, I was hooked, and with any luck, you will be too. Number 9. The Day the Earth Stood Stupid. Okay, I'm sure that most of you clicked on this video because you were already fans of the show to begin with, but then again, there may be a few newcomers here who are curious to scope out some of the better recommended episodes to see if they want to commit to watching the whole series or not. So with that in mind, be warned now that this entry contains quite a bit of spoilers for major plot points that we're building in the background of the show. I'll do my best to not reveal everything, but in this particular case, it's pretty much impossible. So up until this point, the Planet Express crew, but mostly Leela, took care of this mysterious creature they found and named Nibbler. Well, surprise, 3 seasons in and we find out that he's actually a super intelligent alien who was sent on a mission to observe humans in secret. And when an ominous trail of destroyed planets is on a course for Earth, Nibbler reveals that giant evil brain spawn have been terrorizing his people since the dawn of time, primarily through their powers of being able to turn anyone stupid. But luckily for everyone, Fry is the only one immune to their brain drain powers, and so our lovable delivery man must find a way to save the world all on his own. Matt Groening has pointed out more than once that the writers had intended to give Fry a larger purpose for coming to the future since the pilot episode, but had held off on developing that idea until the 4th season. But this is where we get the first solid hints of an even larger conspiracy going on. But amid all that, we get heaping levels of absurd comedy as what would otherwise be a terrifying invasion story in any other medium is turned into something out of a cheesy 50s B-movie that the Mystery Science Theater gang would tear into. But best of all, this episode's a great example of how clever Fry can actually be. He doesn't just accidentally bumble his way to victory, he does manage to come up with a creative solution to defeating the evil brains. The final sequence is easily the best part as Fry is chased through a mental realm that has him falling into the stories of Tom Sawyer, Pride and Prejudice, and Moby Dick, before trapping the brains in a story of his own making filled with plot holes and spelling errors. It's both a creative and hilarious payoff to one of the most out-there alien invasion plots ever, and sets the stage for one of the most carefully plotted out character arcs I've ever seen done in a comedy show. Number 8. The Sting. Although this series was primarily a dark comedy, it did have its share of emotional and serious episodes too. It didn't happen often, but when it did, they hit hard. For fans of the show watching this, I'm just going to clue you in now and tell you, no, Jurassic Park and Luck of the Fryish are not on this list. Don't get me wrong, I completely understand why they're so well regarded, and as I said earlier, if I were picking out what I believe to be objectively the best episodes, this list would be very different, and these two would certainly be on it. But guys, I just can't with these two. Jurassic Park especially. I've only ever seen that episode the whole way through once in my life. And once was enough. If you know why, you know why. Anyway, all of the relatively serious stories the show produced, this is the one that I find myself coming back to the most. Professor Farnsworth warns the crew that their next mission, to collect honey from giant space bees, was the mission which killed his previous crew. At the hive, Leela paints Bender like a bee to deceive the real bees while she and Fry collect the honey. Well, naturally, everything that could go wrong does, and just as Leela is about to be attacked by a bee, Fry throws himself in front of her to protect her, and is impaled by the bee's stinger, and dies. From this, Leela falls into a deep depression, blaming herself for his death and resorting to consuming the space honey to calm herself down. While sleeping, she experiences a series of dreams in which Fry is alive, all of them ending with Fry telling her to wake up and leaving her a souvenir from the dream in the waking world. And pretty soon, Leela's insistence that Fry is alive leads the others to conclude that she's going insane. Is she losing her mind from eating too much space honey? Is Fry somehow still alive out there? Or is something else going on here? According to the writers, this plot originated from them wanting to make an episode where it seemed as though a major character had really been killed off, and the story came together in a matter of hours after that. It's since gone on to be nominated for an Emmy, and Matt Groening is on record saying it's one of his favorite episodes, and it's easy to see why. Not only does it have some overarching connecting tissue in regards to confirming what happened to the original Planet Express crew, something that was offhandedly mentioned way back in the pilot episode, but this plot was another major stepping stone in developing the slow burn romance between Fry and Leela. Up until this point, they had their cute moments here and there, but this was the first time we got an entire episode dedicated to revealing Leela's true feelings for the 20th century delivery boy she found herself falling for, and her crushing guilt for getting the first man who ever cared for her killed. Okay, well, I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say, no, Fry didn't actually die. I mean, come on, if he did, we wouldn't have a show anymore. But that doesn't make Leela's feelings any less real, and as the mystery as to what's going on continued to unravel, it all leads up to a creative twist ending ripped straight out of the Twilight Zone. Oh wait, I'm sorry, The Scary Door. It's funny, it's tense, it has twists and turns, it's emotional. It takes a little bit of everything this show does best and whips it all together into one satisfying gooey honey. Number 7. Reincarnation. While I feel that Futurama's first 4 seasons was its golden era, the show still managed to pump out a few gems in its later runs, even after jumping to a new network, and in the final episode of Season 6, we get this hilarious trifecta of short stories. Granted, this format wasn't new. Some of the show's most creative episodes were the ones like these that featured 3 short tales that parodied stuff, and it won't be the last on this list, but this one is unique in that the stories actually connect together. Sort of. The first segment is animated in a 1930s black and white Flesher rubber hose style in which Professor Farnsworth discovers a comet made of diamandium, the hardest substance in the universe, and sends the crew to gather diamond dust from the comet's tail. Fry sneaks onto the surface of the comet and finds a large gem which he hopes to give to Leela as an engagement ring. What follows is a super cute moment between Fry and Leela, and adding to the hilarity is how Leela describes a beautiful rainbow. That, of course, is all in grayscale. Short number 2 has the professor turning the debris from the Diamondium comet to create a microscopic lens powerful enough to find the smallest unit of matter, which is described as extremely intricate but is depicted as a single black pixel. Oddly enough, this middle section actually has a poignant thing to say about how scientists need to keep looking for answers about the universe, complete with a guest appearance by Stephen Hawking. But even better, this second portion is a total send-up of 8-bit video games from the 1980s, and I kept cracking up at how Bender continuously tries to leave the scene but keeps getting dragged back against his will. And finally, the third segment gives us the Action Delivery Force, where a race of gelatinous aliens who can only communicate through body language is angered by the destruction of the Diamondium comet, which they worship as a god, and attack Earth in retaliation. Thus, the Planet Express crew go full Voltron mode and attempt to broker peace between the aliens with comical results. As I said before, Futurama was no stranger to the 3 short stories style of episode at this point, but what makes this one extra special is not just the interconnected story about the diamond, but the fact that the crew went the extra mile to animate each segment in a completely different style. From Steamboat Willie to 80s computer graphics to old school badly dubbed anime. This series may be one of the nerdiest comedies around, but it's episodes like these that fully encapsulate just how much love and care went into every joke and reference, and that the crew was never afraid to randomly break reality from time to time just to have a good laugh. Number 6. 300 Big Boys. Here we go again with yet another tell a bunch of short stories in a half-hour episode, but unlike the previous reality-breaking one, as well as another one we'll get to later, this one not only gets a medal for squeezing in over 10 different character moments, but also finds a way to have nearly all of them overlap and connect to each other. Zap Brannigan leads an attack on Tarantulan 6, claiming numerous silken artworks for Earth. Earth President Richard Nixon, and yes, for you newbies who clicked on this video, a decapitated Nixon is the future president, just roll with it, considers this a windfall and gives every citizen a $300 tax rebate, and thus we're taken through one eventful day as nearly every major and minor character each contemplate how to spend their funds. Leela uses it to swim with a whale, Fry buys and drinks 100 cups of coffee, Bender spends his on burglary tools to steal a $10,000 cigar, Professor Farnsworth buys stem cells to give him a youthful appearance, Hermes buys a set of mechanical stilts for his son Dwight that inadvertently go haywire and drag the two off, rampaging through New York, Kiff buys a watch for his girlfriend Amy while Amy gets a talking tattoo. And that's really about it. On paper, it's one of the most simple and basic plots ever, yet in execution, it shows off just how much planning and thought must have went into this to make sure everyone got their moment in the spotlight, and have so many wildly different branching paths all come together in the end. And as always, the comedy is top-notch. My favorites include the counter at the bottom of the screen for how many cups of coffee Fry is up to, Bender buying the burglar tools and then casually asking the manager what time the store closes, and the ending where, well, I dare not spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen this, but someone who helped produce the X-Men First Class movies must have seen this episode and took notes. Oh, and I nearly forgot about Dr. Zoidberg. How does he spend his rebate check? I won't give that part away either, but let's just say it's a very touching surprise. Number 5. Where no fan has gone before. Alright, for those who've been following the channel for a while or know me in real life, you know how much of a Trekkie I am, so you probably saw this one coming a mile away. And now in the recent years of having a show like Lower Decks that has loving callbacks while also continuously poking fun at the very franchise it's in, complete with guest appearances by tons of Trek actors, I think it's more than fitting to look back on the episode that did this very thing 20 years prior. Fry learns that the Star Trek franchise has been forbidden since the series became a worldwide religion in the 2200s. All of its fans were killed during the Star Trek Wars, and the sacred tapes of its 79 episodes and 6 movies were burned, with the remaining copies sent to the Forbidden Planet Omega-3. Outraged, Fry takes Leonard Nimoy's head from the Head Museum and convinces Bender and Leela to join him in a mission to recover the tapes. When they get there, they find several original sets from Star Trek, most of the original cast with new bodies and eternal youth, and an energy being named Melvar, who explains that he became a Trekkie after watching the discarded tapes over and over again. He then orders the actors and Planet Express crew to participate in a Star Trek convention until the end of time, and forces the cast to perform his fan script. Now Fry and his friends must find a way to save the Trek crew, defeat Melvar, and escape the planet, and in the process prove to everyone what it truly means to be a Trekkie. The writers and staff have said multiple times how much making this episode was a dream come true for them, and it's easy to see why. Trying to break down every last Easter egg in reference to OG Trek this one episode manages to cram into 22 minutes would take hours. Just trust me when I say that the love and respect the writers had for this classic show is present in every single frame and piece of dialogue. From using the court-martial framing device from the Menagerie, to an energy being as the antagonist, to Uhura's fan dance, to Nimoy seeing if the Vulcan nerve pinch will actually work in real life. Every last quirk the old show had to offer, both good and bad, is laid bare. But what I really appreciate is that this could have so easily turned mean-spirited and made the show out to be nothing but outdated campiness, and made Trekkies out to be basement-dwelling losers who have nothing better to do with their lives. And while it toes that line in just a few scenes, the writing makes it clear just how important the original Star Trek was on pop culture and history as a whole, that its legacy should be respected, and what happens when a fandom goes out of control and takes things too far. And best of all, we get a reunion with almost the entire bridge crew, and it's easy to tell that the actors all had a blast coming back to voice themselves and poke gentle fun at the show that changed their lives. And now, with both Leonard Nimoy and Nichelle Nichols gone, it's a reunion that'll never happen again. And the more time marches on, the more I think us Trekkies should appreciate just how special this episode actually is. It truly dares to go where no fan has gone before. Number 4. Anthology of Interest 2. Okay, I swear, this is the final time we're going to talk about yet another trilogy of short stories episode. While Anthology of Interest 1 is what kicked off this trend of having at least one collection of stories episode per season practically, this sequel is the one I return to the most. True, Reincarnation and 300 Big Boys may objectively be better in terms of their ambition to change up the art style or throw in everything but the kitchen sink, but in terms of what they're parodying and the sheer number of references crammed in, I think this one has them beat. At least in 2 of the segments anyway. So back in Anthology of Interest 1, it was established that Professor Farnsworth created a what-if machine, which basically does what Marvel Comics likes to do from time to time. You ask it a hypothetical question, and it then plays a video of what the possible outcome would be. Well, the professor decides to dust the cobwebs off his little doodad and give it another spin, and so we're taken through 3 scenarios that get exponentially wackier than the last. The first presents us with what would happen if Bender became human. I don't want to spoil the ending to this one, as it manages to make a statement about how we spend our day-to-day lives while also being shocking and darkly comedic as usual, but it is interesting to see grumpy and snarky Bender's reactions to human sensations he previously wasn't capable of, and it's neat to see the show's idea of what Bender would look like as a human. I'm sure there's tons of artists and fans who have had their own imaginary interpretations, so it was neat that the show kind of beat them to the punch, as though they were saying, yeah, we know you guys are probably wondering what he'd look like, so we'll save you the trouble. Here it is. Story number 2 poses what would life be like if it were more like a video game. In this, Ambassador Kong of planet Nintendo 64, along with a gang of other classic villains, declare war upon the Earth, and it's up to Fry to save everyone due to his extensive knowledge of video games from the 20th century. And so we're taken through every parody and reference to 1980s gaming you can think of, from Super Mario to Pac-Man to Donkey Kong to Space Invaders. It certainly blows pixels out of the water and predates the new Super Mario Bros. Movie by at least 15 years. As for why the villains of gaming are invading to begin with, you'll just have to watch and find out for yourself. All I'll say is, you're in for a hilarious surprise. Finally, Leela asked the machine what if she found her true home. Bear in mind, this episode takes place before the full reveal of what her backstory is, which I'll try to be light on the spoilers for any newcomers. But when the lever is pulled to start the simulation, Leela is hit on the head and knocked unconscious, prompting her to dream up a parody of The Wizard of Oz with Leela as Dorothy, Nibbler as Toto, Amy as Glinda the Good Witch, Fry as the Scarecrow, Bender as the Tin Man, Zoidberg as the Cowardly Lion, Professor Farnsworth as the Wizard, and evil Overlord Mom as the Wicked Witch of the West. While tons of media have done their own homages and parodies of this famous story and movie, this is one of the more memorable ones to me. The character matchups are perfect, and it's a testament to the talent of the writers that they managed to hit nearly all the major bullet points of the MGM movie in under like 7 minutes. And that's also counting all of their own jokes they throw in on top of it, and it too has a bit of a twist ending that gives Wicked a run for its money. While the first third with humanized Bender is fine enough, the other two stories is where I can't decide which I like better, as they're both so good. If I had to pick, it'd probably be the middle segment, as I think that one arguably is the most creative in terms of making up an original story and all the references they squeeze in. And it's nice to get another story where Fry saves the day, even if it's non-canon. But really, all these short story episodes are worth a look, showing off how much creative potential the writers could dish out in a short amount of time. The Simpsons had Treehouse of Horror every year, so Futurama got the anthology episodes. Here's hoping the new season on Hulu manages to give us more Tales of Interest. Number 3. Fry and the Slurm Factory. Coming in at the tail end of Season 1, even early into the show's run, the writers gave us this gem of a parody of a certain Wonka and his chocolate factory. The makers of Slurm, a popular intergalactic soda, are announcing a contest. Whoever finds a golden bottle cap inside a can of Slurm wins a free trip to the Slurm plant, a tour of the Slurm Factory, as well as a party with the popular Slurm mascot Slurms Mackenzie. Naturally, Fry is determined to find the bottle cap and manages to thanks to the professor's new experimental F-ray that enables the user to look through anything, even metal. Soon enough, the Planet Express crew arrives at the Slurm plant on Wormulon, where they're given a tour through the magical factory that turns out to be housing a very dark secret. While all the various Tales of Interest episodes gave us parodies of all kinds of movies and famous properties, they were all confined to just 5-minute shorts. But this time, we get a hilarious Willy Wonka tribute that's given the full 22 minutes to flesh out the gags and put their own sinister twist on a normally fairly innocent story. I think it was a wise move to cut out any other contest winners, since the Planet Express crew is big enough that we don't need to throw in parodies of the other kids that we wouldn't care about anyway. Just letting the gang do their usual riffing is funnier as a result, from the Crunkalunkas constantly singing warnings about not asking about Slurm's secret ingredient, to Bender diving in the river of Slurm just because he wanted to be popular, to Fry wondering if the secret ingredient is people and Leela's dry explanation of soil and cola, to the background party music that plays every time Slurms Mackenzie shows up. I don't know, just something about the jokes in this one just does it for me. Whenever I think back on the show, this and the other two entries coming up are the episodes I find myself thinking about or quoting the most. Part of what also makes this one memorable for me is the turn it takes in the third act. When watching the original Willy Wonka, I always wonder just how much of the factory in-universe was real and how much of it was just a show for the tourists. I kept expecting one of the kids to make a wrong turn and discover the plain, boring real factory in the back, while all the Disneyland stuff was kept up front. Well, apparently someone on the writing team had the same idea, because the episode eventually drops the parody and turns into a full-on espionage with Fry and the gang stumbling upon what makes Slurm so tasty and addictive. I won't spoil what it is, but I'll leave you with this burning question. If you discovered something you really liked, especially if it's a food, turned out to have some questionable yet ultimately harmless ingredients, would you still want it? Would you tell everyone what you found out? Or would you be willing to keep it a secret if it meant keeping the thing you liked? Given Fry's character, you may have guessed what his answer was, but if you want to know for sure, you'll just have to watch and find out. Just remember that there's some things in this world that really are better left a mystery. Number 2. The Forworth Parab Box. It's funny how nowadays turning almost every major franchise into a multiverse has become a popular thing to do, when this one episode dared to explore the idea over 20 years ago. Professor Farnsworth plans to destroy a yellow box containing a dangerous experiment by ejecting it into the sun. He forbids the Planet Express staff from opening it, and Hermes assigns Leela to guard it. Tempted to open the box, Leela flips a coin to decide whether to look inside. After getting a positive result, she falls into the box and finds herself in a parallel universe with alternate versions of herself and her friends. When both groups eventually meet each other, naturally each group assumes the other one is evil, a cliche we've seen all too often in parallel universe stories. But eventually the two professors discover that coin flips have opposite outcomes, which explains why the parallel Leela didn't open the box she was guarding. Because of this, Fry and Leela also discover that their doppelgangers are happily married. Soon enough, each group determines that nobody is evil and they all befriend each other, which is lucky for them, because then when they discover that our Hermes is on his way to destroy the box containing the original universe, our heroes and their counterparts will have to team up to stop him and traverse the multiverse to find him. It's clear the writers were big fans of those classic multiverse crossover events that DC Comics would do every year, as this is a clear homage to that, complete with the characters fighting over what the names of each universe should be, which, by the way, fighting mongooses all the way. And in true Star Trek mirror fashion, you'd think the plot would do the cliche thing of having the doppelgangers be evil, but no, in a nice refreshing twist, the team from Universe B, or Universe 1, or whatever you want to call them, aren't evil, or all that different really, save for a few cosmetic changes, which you'd think that'd be boring, but when you see it play out, it's funny to listen to each other argue with someone who's basically their exact copy. In the DVD commentary, the writers said they came up with this plot when they posed the question, would you be able to get along with yourself? As such, each character learns something about themselves that they either didn't realize or did know but didn't want to admit to. The biggest, most interesting difference, of course, is that parallel Fry and Leela are married, which leads to one of my favorite jokes when they say Fry gave her a diamond scrunchie to propose, while our Fry says he got beat up at a Neil Diamond concert by a guy named Scrunchy. But it also makes me kind of sad that we didn't get more visits to the alternate universe, as I would have loved to see married Freela's relationship more. But of course, the real highlight of the episode is when the two Zoidbergs make off with the portal back to Universe A, leading everyone in a wild goose chase through the multiverse. Even if most of them are on screen for just like 10 seconds, the small glimpses we get are hilarious. From Bobblehead World to Robot World to Roman World to Hippie World, nothing is off limits. And pay attention to what each universe is named, as there's a few hidden jokes there too. And how come the Benders only get to mention Leprechaun and Pirate Universe? Just show us, damn it! For all the time travel and alternate history stories this show did, it actually almost makes me kinda upset that they didn't do at least one more adventure in the multiverse or visit Universe B/1 whatever again, as there's so much potential here they could have used. Like, what if one of the characters got trapped in the other universe for a while? Or there's some big reveal that one of the doppelgangers liked it better in our universe, and unbeknownst to everyone, they swapped places and took over their counterpart's life. Or we finally get to see Pirate Universe. But now I'm just getting into fanfic territory. Well, regardless, as comedic as this adventure is, it also brings up some interesting existential questions that, admittedly, I'm probably thinking too deeply about. Would you be able to get along with a duplicate of yourself? Would you let a coin flip decide your fate? Or are you able to look so-called destiny in the face and say, screw it, I make my own destiny? Or maybe it's all just a bunch of bull and there's just another you running around out there with a different colored hair. And my number one favorite episode of Futurama is Less Than Hero. Season 4 must have been a golden era for this show because I'm just now realizing how many of my favorite stories all came from this one season. Something must have been in the coffee that year. Either that or the writers all got a dose of miracle cream, as we're about to see. Professor Farnsworth orders a super collider from Paikia. After assembling it, Fry and Leela are left with sore muscles, so Dr. Zoidberg prescribes them Dr. Flimflam's miracle cream. Later, Fry and Leela are returning the broken super collider to the store when they're suddenly jumped by a mugger, and in fighting back, they discover, because of a side effect of the miracle cream, they now have superpowers. Taking the names Captain Yesterday and Clobberella, and with Bender joining them as Super King, they form the new Justice Team. Pretty soon, they're making a name for themselves in the city, saving people and fighting the likes of supervillains like the Zookeeper. But when their adventures put a strain on Leela's relationship with her parents, and when the bottle of miracle cream eventually runs out, the trio will have to decide whether it's worth continuing being superheroes or not. Well, as most of you probably know by now, if you've been following the channel or know me in real life, then you know how much I love the superhero genre. So is it any surprise that this came in at number 1? This entire thing is clearly a loving tribute to the Adam West Batman show, which I adore, right down to the narrator and catchy theme song the team gets, which I still know all the words to this day. Actually, this is the one episode I quote the most and can practically recite the whole thing by heart because I've watched it so many times. The gags just come a mile a minute in this one. From Fry and Leela picking apart the robber's story even when he repeatedly tells them he's mugging them, Bender casually saying a friend of mine said he mugged you today and you had superpowers, and Fry and Leela not questioning this, exchanging the super collider for a wobbly CD rack and rancid meatballs, what does piano wire count as when picking up a license to kill, the cute way Bender asked to be on the team and then turning into a total glory hog, and the list goes on and on. But mostly, I love how, while they do mostly want to help people, they primarily become superheroes just for the fame and to have fun. And honestly, that's a refreshing change of pace from the standard superhero origin. Granted, yes, this is just a one-and-done half-hour story in a series focused primarily on comedy, but still, in an age now where so many superhero characters are given deep, dark, and tragic backstories and complex motivations for saving the day, how cool and funny and different is it to get a tale of 3 people who decide to put on costumes and beat up criminals just because they're basically bored. 3 superheroes who actually have fun being superheroes. Also, I wonder if they got Clobberella's name from Lisa's alter ego Clobbergirl from The Simpsons. And I'm curious how long they actually were superheroes for. At least long enough for costume villains to start appearing. Like, was the Zookeeper already a threat before the new Justice Team came along? Or is this just me reading too much into this again? Probably. Still, I really wish we would have gotten just one more Justice Team episode. Like, they somehow find another bottle of miracle cream and suit up again, but now everyone from Planet Express joins up and gets powers? I can already imagine the potential in my head, and it's sad that this was their only outing. Is this the best episode ever in terms of plot, characterization, world building, or emotional exploration? No, of course not. But is it the most fun episode? I'd argue yes. Amid all the time travel, interdimensional hijinks, emotional flashbacks, and character arcs, once in a while it was great for the show to take a break and give us a wacky story just for the sake of it. Even better when you throw one of my favorite genres in the mix, and it's for this reason that this one adventure with the new Justice Team is my pick for my favorite episode. I'm Cartoon12 and I hope you enjoyed the countdown. I have many other top 10 lists and other fun stuff that you can find on my channel. If you like this video and want to see more, be sure to comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.